Hi guys, it's Miss Bergan. We are going to now talk about 4.8, which in my opinion is super easy. The kids all love it every year because they actually think it's easier than possibly even the first time of multiplying. So in my opinion, they probably should have had this be like 4.2, just to kind of get you used to it. So I am going to flip this around and we're going to talk about this. We're going to go pretty quickly on this actually. So when decimals are multiplied, the product may not have enough digits to place the decimal point. In this case, you will just need to write additional zeros as placeholders. All right, so students are racing typical garden snails and measuring the distance of the snail's travel in 1 minute. Chris's snail travels a distance of 2/10 of a foot, and Jamie's travels 4/10 times as far as Chris's. So how far does Jamie's snail travel? Well, first, what it's saying to do is that you could just do, like, take off all these zeros here. That would leave you with 4 times 2, which is 8. So we all know that that is 8. Then that would just be a 0. So this is basically it. And then we would have a whole row of zeros, which is unnecessary to write. However, it is saying we need to move this in twice. So starting from the back, I'd move it in twice. So there's my decimal, and that means I need to have a 0 here as a placeholder so that it is saying 8/100ths. So your answer is 8/100ths of a foot. Okay. Next, so here, what you could do as well, it says multiply with as with whole numbers. So if you were looking at this, technically the whole number here would be like 30 times 2. 30 times 2 is truly just saying 32 times, so 30 plus 30 is 60. So that is your number. Also, you could have done this as well. That would have been a 0. This would have been a 6. And then this one would have been a 0. And then how many decimal places would have been 3. So move it in 3, 1, 2, and 3. And it would be 60 hundredths. Sorry, 60 thousandths. However, it is talking about money in this case. And this is not the correct way of talking about money. We don't have a thousandth of a cent. So we never write down the thousandths place when it comes to money. So it's just simply saying 6 cents. All right, so now we're going to move on here. So it's saying to find this, you could have easily have go ahead and put this up. How many numbers are after the decimal? There is a total of 3. Now the numbers here is just 5 times 2, which is 10. But then we need to move it in 3 places. So 1, 2, 3. So this one should have been a placeholder here and a placeholder here. So this one would be 10 thousandths. All right, so here they're saying, all right, just drop off the zeros. And it's just saying 5 times 7, which is 35. And then how many decimal places do we need to bring it in? It is 3. So I need to move it in 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then I need placeholders there. So that would be 35 thousandths. Here, that all you'd be left with would be 22 times 3, which is 6, because the rest of them would just be a bunch of zeros added on. So then you would move it in 2 places. So 1 and 2. So your answer is 6/100ths. All right, next. What is left is 2 times 2, which is 4. Then you just have a bunch of zeros. So how many numbers are after the decimals? It is 3. So starting from the back, that'll be 1, 2, and 3. And you're just going to put placeholders there. So that is saying 4 thousandths. All right, next. Now we're talking about money, so keep that in mind. We are talking about money here. So we need to go 3 places because there are 1, 2, 3 numbers after the decimal. Now what is 8 times 5? That is 40. And then we need to move it in 3 places. 1, 2, 3. But we're talking about money. Keep that in mind. Sorry, my pen. So we're talking about money. So when we're talking about money, we don't talk about that back thousandths of a cent. We don't have that. So therefore, we're just talking about 4 cents here. So I am going to have you guys try, no, never mind. I'm going to do a couple more with you. So how many numbers are after the decimal? It is 3. Then 9 times 7 is 63. And then you move it in 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. Just put in placeholders. So it'll be 63 thousandths. Here, how many numbers are after the decimal? It is 2. So then what it is, 1 times 2 is 2. And then you move it in 2 places, 1, 2. Then you just put zeros, placeholders. There you go. All right, now I want you to do 7, 8, 9, and 10 for yourself, by yourself, and try that on your own to see if you can get that. All right. Okay, so you should have paused that. If you haven't, make sure you pause it and try those 4 on your own. So if you did pause, this is what you should have had. The first one was just 3 times 3, which is 9, and you moved it in 2 places. So therefore it would have been 9 hundredths. Here you had to move it in 3 places. What is 5 times 3 is 15. And then you moved it in 3 places. It would have been 15 thousandths. Here you would move it in 3 places. So if you did that, that would be 4 times 2 is 8, and then you move it in 3 places. That would be 8 thousandths. Here, how many numbers are after the decimal? There are 3. Well, now you have 40 times 1. So what is 40 times 1? That would be 40. And then you move it in 3 places, which would look like this, but we're talking about money. So therefore that back numbered is no longer part of the problem. So it'll be 4 cents. All right, so that is what you were supposed to do there. Now this one says, find the value of the n. Well, in this case, what is nice is that you would just simply just multiply this and move in that decimal to find the answer, because this is the n is the product of this. So you don't have to work backwards or anything. It's just already there. So what is 6 times 3 is 18. And then how many places do you need to move it in? You need to move it in 3 places. So that would be 1, 2, and 3. And your answer would be 18 thousandths. Okay, on this one, it is telling us that we need to know what this number is. However, we don't know what it is, but we do know that this is 2/10 times something is going to give us 8 hundredths. Well, you could kind of work backwards if you would like to. Some people could have just have seen it by doing, okay, 2 times what is going to give us our 8? Well, 2 times 4 will give you your 8. But then this is only showing 1 decimal place, and we need another decimal place. So therefore, in order for it to be 2 decimal places that we would have had to move it in, I would have had to move my decimal 1 more place. So then I can go and check this. What is 4 times 2 is 8 with 2 decimal places moved in. So that would be giving us our answer. So then it would have been 4/10. Here, same thing. You would you could have worked around that as well by saying 9 times what is going to give me my whole number of 63. 9 times 7 gives you your 63. But then the 2 of them are already used, 2 decimal places already used, but we still need 1 more. So therefore, in order to do this, I should have had 1 more place. So then that would have been 0 and 7 tenths. All right, here Michael multiplies 2 tenths by a number and records the product as 8 thousandths. What number did Michael use? All right, so he multiplies 2 tenths times a number. We'll say n for the number. And the product means the answer to a multiplication problem is 8 thousandths. So in order to figure this out, let's say, okay, 2 times what is going to give me 8? Well, I should have had a 4 here to make that 8. But then I got to worry about the places. So there was only 1 place here that has been used. And that means I need 2 more decimal places. So in order for it to be 2 more decimal places, I need to be pushing this one out not just once, but twice. So then my answer should be 4 hundredths. So to check that, I could do that again. What is 4 times 2 is 8. And then how many numbers are after the decimal is 3, which is exactly what we wanted. So therefore, my answer of n should have equaled 4 hundredths to make this statement true. All right, then we're going to move on to the next one. All right, so it says on an average day, a garden snail can travel about 5 hundredths of a mile. A snail travels 2/10 times as far as the average distance on one day. It travels 6/10 times as far as the average distance on day 2. How far does it travel in those 2 days? All right, so this is saying day 1. And then it also traveled day 2. Now it says day 1, the snail travels 2/10 times as far as the average distance on day 1. Well, okay, so 2/10 times the average distance. Well, what was the average? On an average day, it can travel 5 hundredths. So it's actually saying 5 hundredths. And then on day 2, it is 6/10 times the average distance, which is 5 hundredths again. All right, so in order to do this, you would have to first multiply these to figure out how far it went on day 1 and day 2. So here we go. 5 times 2 is 10. And then how many decimal places? We have 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, and 3. And then here, 5 times 6 is 30. And then how many decimal places? 1, 2, and 3. So 1, 2, and 3. So in order to figure out the question, it says, how far does it travel in 2 days? Well, to figure out how far it traveled in both days, you would have to add those 2 up. So I am going to be adding those 2 up. Remember, when you are adding decimals, make sure you line up the decimals. Bring down your decimal. That would be 0, 4, 0, 0. So therefore, your answer could have been 40 thousandths of a mile, or you could have crossed that 0 in the back out, and it would have been 4 hundredths of a mile. So however you want to say that, you could have said this or this, still the same thing. All right, so that is what you need to do there. All right, here we go. The next one, in a science experiment, Tanya uses 8/10 an ounce of water to create a reaction. She wants the next reaction to be 1/10 times the size of the previous reaction. How much water should she use? So she uses 8/10 for the previous one, but she wants to do 1/10 times as much. So in order to do this, I would have to multiply that. So how many numbers are after the decimal? There would be 2. So then you would just do 8 times 1 is 8, and then you move it in 2 places, 1, 2, and put in placeholders. So it'd be 8/100 of an ounce. Next, it says the library is 5/10 of a mile from Celine's house. The dog park is 3/10 times as far as Celine's house as to the library. How far is the dog park from Celine's house? Right? In an equation means how you would solve it with symbols and numbers and an equal sign. And then they want you to also solve it as well. So there's actually 2 things that they want us to do. They want us to solve put down an equation and solve. So in this case, you would do 5/10 of a mile, and then the dog park is 3/10 times as much will equal your n. So in order to solve this, you would do 5/10 times 3/10. So how many numbers are after the decimal? It is 2 again. And then what is 5 times 3 is 15, carry your 1. 3 times 0 is 0. And then plus 1 is 1. And then you move it in 2 places, 1 and 2. So your answer should have been n is 1/1500 of a mile. Okay, now I'm going to do some of these with you just to do it very quickly. And then you will be done. So here we go. I'm going to do this one with you. How many numbers are after the decimals here? There is a total of 2. So then in order to do this, you would just do 3 times 1, which is 3. And then you move it in 2 places, 1 and 2. Put in placeholders. So it would be 3/100. All right, next. This would be 3 places because there's 1, 2, 3 numbers after the decimal. So what is 8 times 5 is 40, and then we move it in 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. So you could have said 40 thousandths, or you could have said 400ths. Up to you how you would have said that. Next, how many numbers are after the decimal again? There are 3. So then 8 times 3 is going to be 24. And then you move it in 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. That means I need to have a placeholder here and before it. So my answer is 24 thousandths. I'm just going to do a couple more. Here you move it in 3 places. What is 5 times 4? It is 20, and then you put it in 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. So you could have said 2/100ths, or you could have said 2/1000ths. So one of the two. It does not matter which one you have. Next, how many decimal places again? This one would be 3. So 8 times 8 is 64. Then you move it in 3 places, 1, 2, and 3. Put in placeholders. So this one would have been 64 thousandths. All right, so your homework is going to be 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. You are going to cross out 15. Then on the back, you are going to have 1, 2, 3. You're going to cross out 4, 5, and 6. And then that is it for 4.8. Next, I'll be just talking about the chapter review. So we'll get back to that in a little bit. All right, see you guys later. Bye.